Hi, Jim. Hello, everyone. In celebrating your retirement today, I'm here to deliver a small blast from your past in your journey through the Y, and in particular, through the Coburg Y. My recollection may be a little revisionist, but here are the facts as I remember them. Jim was young and personable. He had a great community spirit, and he had strong skill sets in business, finance, and statistics. Exactly what we needed. Jim was able to build on all aspects identified, and slowly the Coburg Y grew with our visions of being financially self-sufficient while meeting the mandates of the Y mission statement.
I first met Jim. I was part of a search committee for a new CEO for the Barrie Y at that time. This is back in late 93, early 1994. And we looked at several candidates and we had narrowed it down. And so we went actually down to Coburg, where Jim was at that time, and talked to the people there. They knew he was leaving, so he was a perfect fit. We all felt so comfortable with him at the time. And so he came to Barrie. First impressions were right. He was the right person for the job at that time. The Barrie Y was booming and things were happening. He was a younger CEO, so it worked out well.
Well, I first came to know Jim from our morning attendances at the Ron Edwards Family YMCA. We were part of the very early morning crowd. And Jim always struck me as someone dedicated to health and well-being. He never had a bad word to say about anyone. And his interactions were always respectful and kind. And he always shared a happy thought. That probably stuck in my mind the most, that Jim always had something good to say. And to me, he embodied the mantra of the Y, the mind, spirit, and body.
I first ran into Jim at a YMCA Geneva Park. There was a conference that I was attending, and what I remember is Jim and his friend, who is now the CEO of YMYWCA of National Capital Region, were organizing a touch football game. And Jim was on one team and Bob was on the other team. Jim was the quarterback. He definitely took charge, and it was a fun time. And that was my first introduction to Jim Comerford.
My journey with the Y started with Jim. Jim was caring, welcoming, and a strategic leader who quickly brought partners together to determine a vision.
Working with Jim has been a delight. I was told to pay attention to him because he can be difficult. And I would say my first impression was that they were right. Jim can be difficult, but also Jim is very, very fair in his observations and how he deals with people.
I met Jim back in the 90s when we were both running marathons. I was running with the Harriers group at the Hamilton Downtown Y, and he was still the CEO of the Y up in, I'm going to say Simcoe, Muskoka, or somewhere thereabouts. And we ran the Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C. together on a day that had to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we both finished, none the worse for wear. And my impression of Jim, frankly, was that he was quiet. He was in the company of lots of kind of high-performing, egotistical athletes, and he was just kind of a quiet plotter who managed to find a way to the finish line. And I think that impression has endured watching him as a leader in Hamilton.
Before we met Jim, many of us English CEOs really didn't drink much beer. We didn't go to the pub a lot. And of course, once we met Jim, Jim was instrumental in helping us English YMCA leads find the pub and find the beer. And we've spent many a happy hour learning, debating, laughing, occasionally crying over a beer and talking about all things YMCA. So Jim, thanks for joining us English people in having a few jars along the way and along the journey.
I have many fond memories with Jim, and they often revolved around a good breakfast and friendly and honest conversation.
It's hard to have memories of Jim sometime without memories of Jim and Donna, his wife. They came as a team socially. I was chair of the board of the YMCA in Barrie at that time, so I worked with Jim closely. When we started to amalgamate Ys, Jim spearheaded that and did a tremendous job. And then we got to become very good friends on a social level as well. We had a group in Barrie at that time who were all runners, early in the morning runners. And again, Jim fit in extremely well. And we had a lot of fun running. We were training for a marathon eventually, and our runs would start off talking about politics and philosophy, and social things, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time you've done about 30K, you're talking about bodily functions. And
working with Jim primarily has been around his dealings with Six Nations and the Indigenous population in the Hamilton area. And there's two things I really think about. One is we had a wonderful opportunity to go visit the Beyond the Bell program on Six Nations with Chief Hill, and to see the impact that Jim and his team were having and how proud he was of the impact that they were having. Was a great opportunity. And my second was when they were building the new Y in Brantford, and we had to deal with the Haudenosaunee Development Institute, and they were being difficult on something. And I knew the players, and I offered to come to Hamilton to meet with them. And it felt like a bit of a showdown, but Jim was so proud to walk into a meeting, having backup in his view and his position. And so it was kind of Jim's stature and his persona, but then also how happy he was and how delighted he was with the impact are certainly some of my favorite memories of Jim.
So I have many favorite memories of Jim, but one of them are the board retreats at Camp Wanakita on Coshlong Lake in Haliburton. I could tell right away how much Jim enjoyed being there and the mutual admiration he shared with the camp manager, the camp counselors, and the staff. He was in his element, and he truly enjoyed the natural beauty and the outdoor activities. And with every opportunity, Jim shared his strong belief in the importance of Camp Wanakita and what it meant to everyone who experienced it. And I'm sure that we will be seeing Jim and Donna for many years to come up at Camp Wanakita. At least I hope to.
Jim also had a great gift. He has a great gift that when discussions and debates were tense or difficult, Jim would often bring humor, often self-deprecating humor, which put a focus on him that we would all laugh, which broke the tension or the atmosphere. It was a very, very special gift, and one I saw in action on many, many times. So I think Jim is a leader who has great humility, and underneath that gentle and soft and kind and humorous exterior, there is a leadership steel. There is something very steely about Jim at its heart that made me feel that there's a strength and a depth to who he is.
The quality I least like is that he is an Ottawa Red Blacks, Renegades, Rough Riders fan, sadly. Hasn't come to appreciate that Tabby's My Tiger Cats are a much better team. I remember distinctly when I spoke at Jim's introduction and Scott Haldane's departure that my advice to him was that you never want to follow Vince Lombardi, the great Green Bay Packer football coach, because Scott Haldane had been a charismatic leader here and following in his footsteps was tough. But he took that in good spirit. Jim has always acknowledged that his style is very different than his predecessors, and what he's done in the role is to very quietly and very effectively build trusting partnerships that have made a difference both for the Y, the organization that he leads, but more importantly for the communities that we both serve in. So Hamilton, Brantford, and Burlington are really indebted to Jim for strong and in many ways understated leadership, which I think reflects the comment I made about him when he arrived.
On a personal level, in my career, Jim has always been supportive of me, and it's something that I really appreciate, regardless, regarding different Ys about different roles that I've held in my career. I've been with the Y 45 years, and once I got to know Jim and he got to know, as I took on different challenges, he was always very supportive and very much a collaborator with me.